Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Today is an exciting first episode of my collab with my co-host, Tom Reimer, and we are doing a new series we're calling Found Footage Fridays.
Really excited to be here. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We're both wearing VHS shirts.
Coincidentally,
not planned.
Nope.
Yes, so we became friends on Twitter. Tom joined me when we did our Found Footage Live for Found Footage Month back in March, and I really there's so much found footage, and I really wanted to do a series, so I reached out to Tom. He was excited to do it, so that's kind of how we ended up here.
Yeah, it's pretty much how I spend every Friday is watching found footage movies. So this was not really any extra on my plate.
Yeah, I've been watching so many that I'm learning. I think I like had to take a break from found footage, like dare I say, because I was like, I have seen so many recently that I was so tired of like the camping trips and the like I just got so tired.
The cleaning of the lens.
I'm like, yeah, the running where all you see is rocks and dirt and chaos. I was like, I need a break from it. But yeah, so it is both of our favorite subgenre of horror, right? That's your favorite too?
By far. Yep.
Yeah. So we're super passionate about it. Very excited. Hope you guys like the series. It won't always be on a specific movie. I think that's more of what we're going to try to do is it'll be like specific found footage movies. But for this episode, we're going to do kind of an introductory episode, if you will, of our top 5 picks for found footage movies and why we picked them, just to kind of get, everybody's feet wet. That's right. Into what we like, why we like it, and that might help you decide if you, what you want to see or other movies that we might like. So, all right, let's start with your number 5, Tom.
All right. So my number 5 is different than my others. For me, found footage, it's what's scariest is often what feels the most real. In like at least the situation. It can have paranormal elements or supernatural elements, often does. But if I can almost put myself in that situation, it's scarier. This one's different than the rest. The rest tend to really have more supernatural and paranormal elements. This one is Creep, which stars, what is his name? Mark Duplass? Yeah, Mark Duplass.
That's right, yeah.
A super creeper in that movie.
Yeah.
And I just could picture myself right there. It felt like a real life sort of situation. So it was really tough to pick number 5, but Creep is a classic. And I just had to put it on there.
Yeah.
You've seen that, right?
I have.
You have strong feelings on it, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I do.
Let's hear it.
So Creep is one. So when I first started doing my socials for the channel, for the month of October, the first month that I had like anything opened, I did a 30-second movie review every day for the entire month of October, and Creep was one of my reviews. And it literally, the still for it, like when you go look on Facebook, is me like this. I appreciate aspects of Creep, but it didn't hit for me. Like it was, and then I learned about it and learned that like it's literally from start to finish, it's completely improvised. There's no writing, there's no like, and some people look at that and go,
does that piss you off though? Is that
yes. And some people are like, oh my God, it's so good. That makes it even better. And I'm like on the other side of it. I'm like, that made me so mad.
Now, see, I feel like he should have won. He should have been nominated for an Oscar for that
for doing all of that without
just so like just so nuts in that. So that's why I put it on there.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good one, and I know that I am in the minority on that one. There are a lot of people that really like that film, and I have not seen the second one. Have you seen the second one?
I have. It's same sort of feel.
Is it? Okay, I haven't seen the second one, and then there was supposed to be a third, but they haven't done it. I don't know if they're still going to, but I know there was supposed to be a third at some point, and I don't think they've done anything with it yet. So
the character is just so weird that you're almost like, is he really bad? And don't know. It just kind of hits in a funny way. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
It's cringy. It's definitely
that's the
cringy.
creep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a very different type of discomfort. Like you said, it seems like
Yeah.
situational, like that's something that could really happen. Like I can totally see, I appreciate that side of it. It just wasn't one that lingered for me. I remember watching it and being like really disappointed. But
Okay.
I do know that it is a lot of people, like a lot of people really like that one. So
Yeah.
yeah, so my number 5 is a newer for me. I don't actually remember when this one came out, but I am like, Tasha and I both are really big fans of Aliens, but
Yep.
I feel like Aliens are a thing that are like really hard to get right, especially if you're going horror versus action.
Yep.
And so this was a movie that was on the list for Found Footage Month in March,
Yep.
and I watched it, and I was like super unsettled, very invested. It's based off real events. So
Mhm.
my number 5 is Skinwalker Ranch. Found footage, aliens, like it just like it really hit the mark for me. I was just talking about this with I think with Tasha the other day actually about the fact that like there is a sequence in this movie that when I watched it the first time, I completely missed it and caught it at the very end. And I was like, and it was one of those things where I was like, I have to rewind that. And I went back, and when I rewatched it, I was so uncomfortable. Like
Yep.
I just thought it hit like all of those things for me. You don't see too much of the alien. You don't see like too much of what's going on. And there's a lot of mystery. And I thought the characters are super believable. But to me, found footage is already kind of difficult to get right. It's not always like a dead ringer, right? But when you add in something else that's really hard to get right, I just think Skinwalker Ranch did like a really good job. So that's like
See,
number 5.
see, for me, I love Aliens. I love,
Yeah.
I was huge with the original like Alien movie,
Yeah.
Aliens, Alien 3. It's Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Like my favorite series of all time.
Yeah.
But the thing for me for found footage is like I don't know. There's something about aliens. I'm trying to picture this as a real life situation, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't quite feel as real for me. And this is coming
Okay.
from someone who wrote an entire trilogy about aliens. So really, like, trust me, I love aliens, but for whatever reason in found footage, I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right. Take those aliens out of my found footage movies. So
You didn't like that, huh?
I like them. Like it's a good movie, but I wasn't like it's on one of my favorites. So I'm not.
It didn't hit for you. Yeah.
Yeah, not
So out of random curiosity, I'm
yeah.
trying to think about the ones that you sent me. Is there a found footage alien one that you've liked?
Well, the other one was that. What was the horrible one
Oh
that
God, the
we
McPherson
watched?
tape.
Which is actually one of the oldest found footage. I don't even know if they were calling it then when it came out,
No.
but like because it's pre Blair Witch, but it was like hilariously awful, which sometimes make the best movies. But it did not make the best movie. It was bad.
Yeah.
So it's not like on the. I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Just it didn't scare.
It didn't hit. Yeah.
No,
Didn't check one of your boxes. Yeah.
no,
No, I get
it
it.
didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm not like hard to make happy with a found footage movie. I've
Right.
watched some really bad ones too.
Yeah.
So it's not that. It's not that. There's just a lot that I like even more.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me too. I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. So number 4 for me.
Yeah.
Number 4. I have to like refer to my list because I don't want to get it
I
wrong.
know.
Okay, number 4 on my list is one that I am shocked is not on your list. And that's because it is, in my mind, one of the scariest. It's still number 4. I have a few ahead of it, but that would be Ganjam Haunted Asylum, which is a South Korean horror
Mhm.
film. And it'd be terrifying. A group
Yes.
of young people go into this abandoned asylum,
Mhm.
and I'm like not just jumps here. There are jump scares,
Yeah.
but like it's just chilling the whole thing. And you do see the big baddies in this as well, which you don't always in found footage, but you
That's true.
do in this one. You actually see some of the
That's
scary
true.
stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, has to be. I mean, it's 4 on my list, but it's definitely one of the scariest found footage movies
Yeah.
I've ever seen. If you like found footage, you haven't seen it, you probably should, because it's also everywhere. It's easy to find. I feel like it's on
Yes.
multiple streaming platforms. So
Yeah, Ganjiam is one that I think we spent quite a chunk of time talking about when we did the live because we were all like, "Oh my god!" I think Tasha was like the only person that hadn't seen it. Yeah, that is. I don't think. I think the closest I can come to that as far as like terror is probably Nori, just as
yeah,
far as like, but they're similar. It's in
yeah.
terms of like the things that work are similar. But yeah, Ganjiam is terrifying. I cannot believe I didn't put that on my list.
In Ganjam, as opposed to Nora, it's that movie is more of like plotting.
It takes a
It doesn't
while.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't take the same format. Like Ganjam
that's
is like a
true.
pretty typical format for a lot of these
That's true.
movies. A bunch of filmmakers go into a haunted building. I mean, we've seen that a number of times,
Yeah.
but it's scarier than all of those others that do that.
Yeah, and it actually reminded me of, another one that we'll talk about that's further up on my list,
Yeah.
which was, like, super like, made me feel really excited about it. Like, the whole, like, we're gonna go in and fake a bunch of stuff, and, like,
Yep.
I felt like that very beginning part was, like, really I don't know, like, that whole thing just, like, really pulled me in. That is a really scary one.
Yeah.
That one really made me super uncomfortable for, like, way longer than I like, way after I watched it.
Like I often like force myself to watch a lot of these movies in I mean, in a dark basement, like to add to the fear. But that was one that I was a little bit much. Yeah,
Yeah,
scary.
that one's scary.
Legit.
That one is legitimately scary.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's good. I'm really I don't know. I know I said this earlier, but like I really just I think I've seen so many since March
Yeah.
because all of the ones that you guys talked about that I hadn't seen, I've been trying to like watch new ones and I have watched so much found footage over the last couple of months that Gonjiam just like totally like
I,
so I'm glad it was on
I,
your list.
I have to say, I've been doing this for a long time, but it's been helpful to have to know other people who are watching found footage because I'll see you post things or
Yeah.
tweet things, and then
Yes.
I have something to watch on Friday night. So
All the time now, especially now because everybody's on that like found footage
you know,
bandwagon.
it's like we talked about this. Now it's like cool. Before I thought I had this thing just for myself and a
Oh,
couple of
I know.
weirdos. So now I got to share it with everybody else, I guess. So
Yeah, once that documentary came out, it was like
yep,
everybody was super into it. And the documentary is beautifully done. It's very well done and it touched on a lot of really great stuff. But I think I posted too, and I was like, I love that everyone is loving something that I've loved, but I would just like to
yeah,
say that I liked found footage before it was cool.
yeah. And now you got like Host and Dash Cam and all of those like really recent
Newer, yeah.
newer found footage. So and they're popular. They're everyone's loving those. I feel
Everybody
like
really likes those. Yeah.
okay, fine. I mean, I'm happy. Maybe I'll see some on the big screen now again. But
That's true. Yeah.
yep,
Instead of just streaming it.
yep,
That's true.
yep.
Yeah, so my number 4 is also one that I found during Found Footage Month in March. But
Yep.
I've raved about this one to anyone that I've talked to recently about found footage. Like this movie, like I don't know, it just left like a mark on me, and it will forever be like a new favorite of mine. And it's a found footage movie called Afflicted. Did you get to watch this one?
I did. I've seen it. Yep.
You did. Okay, and did you really like this one?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
But I'll say what I'm going to say after you do.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
there's a big part.
So I won't I at the risk of being like spoilery, I won't say exactly what's going on just for the sake of people who have not seen it because I
Fair.
think that my moment of realization of oh my god this is what's going on made me love it and I don't want to rob anybody else of that if that's how they feel. But this to me was not a lot of bells and whistles. Like there was not a ton of things that just like blew my mind about this movie. But what I loved about it was the different take of what it's about for starters. And I love the guys that are in it. Like they just made me love them so much. And I cared so much about what they were experiencing. And there's a couple of shots in particular. I'm thinking of one specific one in my head that just like got me. And it wasn't like a cheap jump scare. It was one of those things that it got me. And then I was like, like I remember doing this and going, oh, and like cussing and being like, you mother. I was like, because it got me that good, you know. And it's not super easy. I jump at jump scares all the time. Jump scares work; they just don't linger.
Yeah.
So I'm jumpy. I jump sometimes, but like there was something about this specific
Gotcha.
moment that lingered for me, and I just could not stop thinking about this movie after I watched it. So it had to be on my list.
Yeah, I love that movie. It's a
Yeah,
great movie, but it's similar to Skinwalker in that, without saying what the thing is,
yeah,
the whole reveal with that movie
yeah.
is something that's not personally something that would scare me.
Okay.
I mean, if I guess if it was real in real life, I
Well,
think
sure.
that would probably scare me. But like generally speaking, it's not one of those things that I
Mhm.
that scares me. So, but
Yeah.
great film, like
So
great
well done. Oh my
filmmaking.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, very awesome movie. I just not
Yeah.
one of the scariest for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But I appreciate that it's on there. Okay, so my number three.
Hmm.
So, um, as I've talked about, for me, a lot of these movies, I could see myself in them. The ones that
Right.
scare me the most. And so my number three is it's a movie about a bunch of friends who
Mm.
go and visit a number of haunted houses, extreme sort of haunted houses.
Right.
They travel from one to the next. It's called The House is October Built.
Hmm.
And there's something that I can remember being a kid and
Hmm.
going into these haunted houses and wondering, like, what if one of these people in here isn't an actor, right? And so also like love watching that movie like around Halloween, like just
Hmm.
like and I feel like I have friends who are sort of like these people who, like, go to these sort of
Yeah.
travel to these like extreme haunted houses, and
Yeah.
it just felt like it was something that could really happen. It
Yes.
would be messed up, but it felt like it could really happen.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them. There are at least two in this series. I've seen
I've
both,
only seen the first one. Yeah.
but the first one's really good,
Hmm.
and so that's for me. That's number three, no doubt.
Yeah.
Did
That's a
you
good
watch that
movie.
for our? Yeah, you watched that one, right?
Yeah. I've seen everything on your list. Yeah, that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I watched that one in March. That was the first time I had seen it. Well, and what's funny is there have been countless times where I've almost watched it, but it actually, like, at least the back in whenever I saw it come out or when it started showing up on streaming stuff, it didn't have super high ratings. And so I was like, well, and I don't think I realized at the time that it was truly found footage. I probably would have watched it way
Yeah.
before then. But I was worried about it being hokey because of what it was about. So I ended up not watching it. But I did like that one. That is a really good one.
So I found with found footage, you almost have to ignore the
Yep.
ratings. I mean, that's used to be horror in general. Like, you
Yes.
wouldn't even bother going on to Rotten Tomatoes because they all were getting destroyed.
Yeah.
But found footage, like sometimes these movies, they don't even like a lot of people don't even know about them, and it doesn't mean they're bad because it takes a
Yeah.
lot less, which is good and bad. It takes a lot less to make a found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
It just the amount of money you require, like
True.
anybody can almost make one of those movies,
Yep.
and so you
That's true.
sometimes get things that just haven't quite found their audience yet, and
Mhm.
so I have just lucked out a couple times. I've watched some of them and had almost no ratings whatsoever, and I
And
love
they've
that.
been really good.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and I think too, I feel that way about monster movies too. Like I
yeah,
feel like monster movies are another one, but yeah, found footage always gets a bad because I've said that in all kinds of reviews. When I see the ratings, I'm like, that's really good for a found footage because they
I
do
do the same
typically
thing.
get, yeah, like the lower ratings. That's true. Yeah.
Yep,
Um. So my next one is, what are we on? Number three.
three. Yeah,
My number three is going to be Grave Encounters.
great movie.
which is what I was saying Gone Jam kind of reminded me of
Yep.
in like the best of ways. It's totally original, but there are just these like nuances that I'm like, oh, this is kind of like. So I watched Grave Encounters for the first time like over a decade ago. Like I don't remember how new it was because I don't know what year it came out, but I was so nervous the rest of the night after I saw that movie. And I love it because it's taking this approach of like it's essentially making fun of Ghost Adventures to start.
Yep. It
Like
is.
Lance is absolutely supposed to be Zach Bagans, like 100% that's who
Mhm.
he's supposed to be. And so he's super over the top and it's comical. And you've got all these situations where they're trying to make things look real when they aren't. And then of course,
Mhm.
like obviously shit gets real. And then it's like all of these things that happen. And one of the things that I think I really loved, aside from all like the concept of like the really scary stuff of like not being able to get out, is like enough to make me not ever go into abandoned hospitals. Cause like I'm just like the possibility of like never being able to leave. But I just think that the scares in that one are just really, really well done. And some of them I think are a little like meh graphic wise.
Yeah.
But I think what it kind of
That's
happens
okay.
with that, I think it like makes up for in some of the other scares that it does that are a lot more practical and don't look as hokey. But yeah, Grave Encounters is like going to always be on my list. It's always on a top recommends list for me. It's on a found footage list usually. I think I left it off the other one because I've always talked about it so much. But yeah, it's always got to be somewhere because I just think it's a great movie and it's very entertaining. And it has like two sections. It has like this funny, lighthearted beginning, and then it has this like crazy story in the second half. And I just really liked it.
Is it weird to say that like there are some found footage movies that are like almost comfort movies that you put on, like,
This is one, right?
oh, I'm having a rough night. I've seen this 1,000 times, but I'm gonna watch this right now and fall asleep to. Fall asleep to found footage movies, which is really messed up. And like this is, I love this movie. This was probably if you had done like a top 6, this probably would have been 6 for me. Yeah, I
Okay.
love Grave
Okay.
Encounters. Yeah, I could sleep to that movie.
Comfort,
Yeah,
yeah.
is that a
Comfort
good review?
horror in general. Yeah. Like,
Yes.
but yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good one. Because it really is like I've seen that one a lot too. And I saw the second one but I really like the first one a
I,
lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
saw the
first one's
second
good.
one too. Not as good as the first. Still enjoyable. No.
No, I hated it. I fast forwarded the first like I don't know, however long it took them to actually get back to the asylum, which is like 30 minutes. Just took too long.
That's when you fall asleep, right then.
That's right.
Oh, so number 2 for me.
Mhm.
Okay, so back on similar to this last movie,
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
Haunted House, um, Hell House LLC
It's a
is
great
my
one.
number 2.
Hmm.
It is really scary. I mean, the setup is more of a mockumentary, or I don't know if that's the right word, but
No,
there's
I
like
think so. Yeah.
sliced in interviews from the locals and the local news stations. So it's a
Hmm.
little bit different in that way. It's not just a handheld camera
Right.
and found footage, um, but it's scarier.
Yeah.
There's more of a supernatural, a
Right.
lot more of a supernatural element to it. It also is a series of films. I think 3. Hopeful they'll make more.
Yeah.
Even though the second and the third aren't as good. Although it's one of those that there's a lot of one of those series where there's a lot of people that disagree on which is the best. There are people who like some of the others, the second or the
Mm.
third, even more, even
Okay.
though they got destroyed. That's an example of some that got destroyed and
Yeah.
in some of their reviews. But Hell House
Yeah.
is it's a great movie, and it's probably one that'll become a regular sort of October film for me to watch,
Yeah.
along with like classics, Halloween and Friday the 13th and some of those. I think it's gonna
Yeah.
be some one of those that I watch every October.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I didn't watch that one for Found Footage Month, but I first view was not long before that.
Yeah.
And I really liked it too. I think my only complaint about it is, the entire movie we're built up around this one specific event that happens in this
Yep.
one specific place. And I just felt like there could have been a little more oomph there, but
Yep.
it's a truly unsettling movie. And I also like that it has those behind the scene things that like keep you
Yep.
intrigued too, of like, this is what it's like to set up a place to like
Yep.
do those kinds of things. Like, there's a haunted house here in Atlanta called Netherworld, and they do lights on tours like a couple days out of the year
Yep.
after season, I think, where you actually get to like, you pay for like a ticket and you get to walk through it with all the lights on.
That's
No,
cool. Yeah.
like, and I think that stuff is fascinating because people who are passionate about that and these really effective haunted houses, a lot goes into making them what they are. And it was really, I like that element
I
too,
like
of
that
like
too.
seeing how they like, got prepared for it. Like, I don't know. I thought all of that was really interesting. I like that one too.
Yeah. And I mean, and just the idea of like, similar, you're walking through there in real
Mhm.
life. And I mean, I remember being a kid and being like, what if that's not a fake clown? Yeah. It's always a clown, right? It's always a clown.
Yes. Or everyone that I've always gone to, the thing that always follows you is always a Michael Myers.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they get
Yep.
off their stand and they like follow you, but yeah, clowns are
And,
scary.
and there are people that like, that's their thing, they take that really seriously and they'll work in those like all over the country.
Yeah.
And so you never know.
Yeah. That's a good one too. I haven't seen any of them except the first one. That's the only one I've
Yeah.
seen.
Uh, Worth a watch. Worth a watch. The first is the best though. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So my number 2 is As Above, So Below. This one, for me, I think what sets this one apart, first of all, it's in the catacombs of Paris, which,
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, like, that's on a bucket list. That's a bucket list item for me. I would love to go
Same.
there. You won't catch me sneaking in any parts. Like, that's not, I'm way too much of a chicken for that. But when the shots of the parts that are really a part of the catacombs, it's like this horribly sad, but like overwhelmingly beautiful thing. Like,
Yep.
it's just a very weird mix of emotions when you see like this, like what actually happened and what it looks like now and so on and so forth. But I think like it's that setup alone made it really interesting to me. But I really liked some of the lore that was put in this, because it wasn't this just like drunken teenagers sneaking in to go be stupid, right? Like, this girl has like a goal, an agenda, and she knows things, and she's like knowledgeable, and she, like, and I really appreciate that element, because when you're talking about adding reasons to have a camera going, it also helps if your characters aren't idiots. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
There
So
always there always needs to be a reason, but there isn't always a reason,
that's
right?
true. That's true.
Or a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have you seen this one?
Oh, love it. Yes, I've
Yeah,
seen
this
it
is a good
before.
one. But you get a lot of stuff with this one. You get supernatural, you get cult, you get like weird like
Travelodge.
past things. Yeah. You
Yes.
get and like all of those like fears of like claustrophobia, and there's some
Oh yeah.
stuff with the water, like, oh my God. And the lore behind the Philosopher's Stone. Oh my God. Like, I love, like, when the first time she said Philosopher's Stone, I was like, this is gonna be such a
Oh,
great movie. I was so excited about it.
I'm
So
a
it
sucker.
had to be
I'm a
my list.
sucker for lore. Sucker for anything
Yes,
that tells
effort. I
a
call
background
that effort.
story. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Not just a camera, not just kids who stumble into a situation they know nothing about, which
exactly.
works sometimes too.
Yeah, and I think that adds a level of uncomfortable, because you're talking about people who know things, who do have a knowledge base for things like, going spelunking, or have the,
Yeah.
like, they know things, and they didn't do it. Like, they almost didn't like get where they wanted to go. Like, and they had to go through all these things. And then as an average person who doesn't have that knowledge or skill set, I'm like, oof, you know,
The claustrophobia in that movie is,
oof.
I think that's the scariest part of that movie, actually. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I think it's also beautifully shot as far as it being a found footage. I think that there are some sequences like the one with the car on fire. I was like, that is so beautifully done. Like, there were moments like that that I was amazed by. So I love that movie. That had to be on here.
That's a great one. That was close for me too. That was
Yeah.
another one that I was debating over.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, here we go. Number one. This was really tough.
Yes.
And this one ended up being my number one, but it simultaneously was a movie that almost didn't make the list at all because I didn't know if I should include this movie because I didn't know if it was
Right.
fair to include this one because it's almost too obvious. So my number one is The Blair Witch Project. 1999. I can vividly recall sneaking in to. I was not old enough to go see this movie on my own when it debuted or premiered, and I can
Yeah.
remember sneaking in to see this, and the whole way that they promoted this movie was
Mm.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And though it probably technically wasn't the very first found footage, I mean, we mentioned the McPherson tape.
Right.
It did spring. I think all of these movies we're talking about, all the movies we're not talking about, might not exist if not for the Blair Witch
Yep.
Project. So I was really conflicted. How could I
Yeah.
not include it? And I, to this day, will say that I don't think there's a movie I've seen on first viewing that was scarier to me because I
I
thought
agree.
I think partly part in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't real, but I
Yeah.
was able to trick myself into
Yeah.
thinking it might be real, which I think is what makes the best found footage films.
Yes.
And so Blair Witch has to be at the top because they did it first, really.
Yeah. Yeah, Blair Witch is the only reason it wasn't on my list is because I mean, it's to me, I agree. It's like you can't talk about found footage and not talk about Blair Witch Project. Like you just can't. And it's such a like yeah, a foundation for I mean, and even like just talking about like how I've seen so many camp scenes in found footage and all these moments that a lot of found footage movies try really hard to recapture, it's so evident that the influence
Yeah.
is from the Blair Witch Project. Like you feel like what they're trying to get to, but I think the way that that movie was, like you said, marketed and built up, and I think it just, I don't think another movie will ever be able to do that because now it's already been done, and it was just done so well that it's like you can't beat that.
There was just a movie you watched it recently, and then I did. It was The House on whatever street. Or it was this guy flies in with his wife to stay in a haunted house for one night. Do you know what I'm talking about? And they actually, this one is marketed like, is this real? Like, you don't know what I'm talking about?
I watched this.
Yeah, you posted about it, and then I thought it was you, and then I went and watched it. Or maybe I told you about it. Maybe that's what
Maybe
it was
that's
the
what it
other way.
was. So he
But it was,
flies.
this guy flies in with his wife. He basically goes around disproving that the supernatural exists. And people who claim their houses are haunted, he goes and films them and proves them wrong, basically. It's good. I gotta find. You haven't
I
seen this
don't
apparently, so oh, it's great.
I don't
But
think I've seen that
similarly,
one.
it's available everywhere pretty much. Similarly, it is marketed as being real? Question mark.
Okay.
So, but it didn't work because I already lived through the Blair Witch Project. So I
Right.
and I'm an adult now. So, but that's Blair Witch number one for me, and I have a feeling it won't ever be usurped. It's perch. It's
Yeah. It's kind of like when you talk about other classic styles of movies and you don't rate them the new stuff the same as you do like classics.
right.
So like, it's very similar to that in that regard. Yeah, no, I agree. The Blair Witch was one that stuck with me. And I didn't see it for the first time until after it was revealed as this hoax, although it was 100% intentional. Everyone was like, no, like it's not real. And it still got me like it was real.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter that at that point that everyone was talking about how like the marketing was just set up to do like exactly what it was. And it didn't matter. Like it still got me. I was so unsettled. And what's crazy is when you think about that movie, literally nothing happens. Like in the
It's
grand
true.
scheme, it's like I could go in my backyard and do the exact same thing. Like it's crazy.
But
But that
nobody
makes
has
me
done
love it.
it. Nobody has done it exactly as
No.
well as they did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think, but I can remember even after that, there was a time where I was a kid running around with a video camera trying to make the Blair Witch Project. I mean, everyone did that. And for some of these, that's what we're seeing. Some of
Yeah.
these people our age went out there and got their movies on the streaming services. And now it's easier. Now these services are picking up, or these platforms are picking up all these movies. So I think you're going to even see more found footage
Yeah.
in the near future.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, so my number one is not one that is like I expect to make a lot of people's list, but it is one that I like. I don't know, like I idolize this movie so much. And I saw it for the first time. I think it came out in like 2008, maybe no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's not that old. I don't remember when it came out, but I watched it for the first time probably like 5-ish, 6 years ago. And it was one that after I think I rented it on Amazon for like
Yeah.
$4. And then I went and like when the movie was over, I went and bought the digital thing from Amazon so I could watch it. And that's my comfort. Like that's my comfort
Yeah.
film footage that I'll fall asleep. I love that movie so much. So, and the movie is The Monster Project, right? And so essentially this movie is found footage of monsters, which is my two favorite subgenres, like smashed together into this like weird, kind of cheesy at sometimes, like just movie of insanity. And I think what makes this movie for me is two things: is the moments where practical effects are used. Then I think the people that they chose to play the monsters delivered.
Oh, they were
Like,
great. Yep.
yeah, like I don't think that the humans were really that strong of actors and actresses. But these monsters, like they get to you, and I love that they didn't go werewolf, they went skinwalker.
Yep.
I love that because skinwalker lore is not the same as werewolf lore. It's very different. And so I love that they dived into that from its roots, from being a Native American lore and having, and one of my favorite shots is 100% a practical shot. It's the close up of the skinwalker looking through the door. And all you see is like this one section of his face. And I'm just like, oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah.
But I think like, I don't think that I think at its core, it's a pretty run of the mill story. Like the ending, I really like the ending, but it wasn't anything special. But there's just something about the monsters that they chose and the people that they chose to play them. And for that, like that always puts this above others for me because I just like, I watch it every time I watch it. I'm just like, I love this movie so fucking much.
I have to admit, I only recently saw that at your recommendation. I hadn't seen it, and I think I loved it. I think it hasn't had enough time to really become one of my favorites, just because I've already seen these others multiple times. But I feel like over time, it's going to grow on me, and I think it's going to rise in the ranks. But I really enjoyed that film too.
Yeah,
and that's a really good movie.
Yeah. And I think I talked about this in our found footage live. I really like that found footage is utilizing this newer wave of technology. It's utilizing YouTube and content creating and like vlogging and like all of these things that are more modern versions of walking around with the camera and recording your family. Like, and I love that because that's more realistic. Like I'm a content creator. I'm not putting out no invites for monsters, but like, there's just something very realistic about that to me because that's something people would do for views. Let's get these bunch of crazy people on camera talking about being monsters. There are
a lot that I enjoy in that sort of category, which are all like really close for me too, like Host and Unfriended and
I like
Death of a Vlogger. And there's just like a lot that are, I mean, I'm not even mentioning them all. There's a ton that sort of fit into that category. And I think my problem was I couldn't pick which I thought was the best. They sort of
that's fair.
Are all similar in some ways. And I really enjoy that sub genre of found footage films. I think that's what it would be. But there's so many possibilities. GoPros and not stuff that didn't exist when Blair Witch came out.
Right. It's completely different angles, vantage points. Like we're just seeing these much bigger pictures of things. And if it's done right, it's just as effective as using just the close-ups. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And sometimes more so. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, those are our top 5 picks for, we only picked 5.
Thank God. If you had me pick, I think I redid this list like 3, and I eventually just sent it to you so I couldn't change it again.
You're like, once it's out there, maybe I won't feel. Yeah, I know. Well, picking top lists when it comes to horror is so difficult, and I'm happily, like, I'm good to admit that my list changes. If we have this conversation 3 months from now, I almost guarantee you my list will be different.
Well, and it's good that we're separating found footage from some of the other
Yeah.
subgenres of horror, because to just say horror, I don't think I could even come up with my top 5.
I had to do a top 10 list for another channel that I was a guest on. Huh?
Just horror films, or
Yes, just
Oh.
horror films.
no.
Monster Project was on that list though.
What was number 1?
Poltergeist.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will agree with that.
Yeah. So
This is the book.
Poltergeist was my first horror movie. It's my first memory of life. And so
Really?
it will forever be my number 1. Forever.
Oh, I wish. What would be my first? I mean, it probably was like Gremlins or something like that. I don't even know that
Oh.
counts. That's a Christmas movie.
My
right?
sister snuck and showed me that movie because I wasn't born yet when it came out. So I was already, and I was like, if I remember it, I had to be at least 3 or 4 when I saw it.
Yeah.
But you know, the beast, the white thing that
Yep.
comes out of the closet, the big, whatever you want to call him. I call him the beast. It's the big white skeleton thing that comes out of the closet towards the end of the movie in Poltergeist.
Oh, Poltergeist. Sorry, I thought you were talking
Sorry.
about Gremlins. I
No,
was like,
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist. Gremlins.
You were like, what? Not Gremlins.
Scary guy. No.
You're like,
Yes,
wait, was I
Poltergeist.
drunk when I
Okay,
watched Gremlins? No, Poltergeist.
Yes.
I was like, no way is he looking at me like that when he just pulled that movie out.
No, I thought you were talking about Gremlins. I was like,
No. Poltergeist. So when the beast, I actually have the guy that did my elephants on my forearm is drawing out a version of that to put on the other part of my arm.
oh my God, that's awesome.
So exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Poltergeist is my number 1, but it's number 1 because it's influential horror, not because it's one of my favorite movies, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I probably would have to go. I'm not. I was going to say Halloween, but again, I'm so obvious with my number 1s, right? Blair Witch and Halloween. What's wrong with me?
Halloween's a good one. I think what happens is because of our ages, I think that, like, when we pick favorites, we're like try to go classics. It's like it's just a product of like the time frame.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. You got me.
Cool. Well, that's our top 5s for now.
Top 5, first episode in the books.
Yay! We did fine. It's fine. I get to edit these. It'll be my first editing project. I'm super nervous.
Went fine.
Yeah.
Did great.
Yeah, it'll be good, I think. It's done. So so that is our first episode for Found Footage Fridays. Next week's episode, we will be talking about the newer found footage movie, Dash Cam.
Mm-hmm. Lots of thoughts on that.
Yes. So, make sure you come back around for that. So anyway, thank you guys for checking out the first episode. We hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week when we discuss Dash Cam.